Call the meeting to order. Welcome. Welcome to the public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We are always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda or other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We desire that our meetings provide useful opportunities for the communications between the board and the community. Thank you for attending. As required under the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice was given and called for this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Times on January 10, 2019, and distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this meeting that the proceedings are being recorded on video. This meeting is being video recorded and may also be live streamed. The representative of the sending district is authorized to vote on such matters that affect sending district students or affect the governance of the Princeton Public Schools, as more specifically designated in New Jersey statute. In the event that the statute is amended, the law shall take precedence over this bylaw. Sending district votes pertaining to personnel actions refer to high school, central administration, and district-wide staff only. Votes otherwise are considered abstentions. Tom, would you like to take a roll call, please?
Beth Barron.
Here.
Debbie Bromfeld.
Here.
Daniel Dart.
Here.
Jessica Deutsch.
Here.
Bill Hare.
Here.
Betsy Baglio.
Here.
Brian McDonald.
Present.
Gregory Stagowitz.
Here.
Michelle Tuck Ponder.
Present.
Evelyn Spahn.
Here.
Hallie Rounds.
Here.
Sam Harshberger.
Okay, first on our agenda is the adoption of minutes, item D. Can I have a motion, please? Jess? Second? Second? Betsy, thank you. So this is the adoption of the minutes from the April 23rd, or the March 19th, 2019 board meeting. All in favor, show of hands. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Unanimous.
Who seconded that? I didn't.
Betsy. Moving on, next item is harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which is a consent item. And then we go to my report. Right. So welcome, everyone, to the meeting tonight. And I would like to, because I go first, I get to give the congratulations to Tim Charleston and his family on the birth of his son today. Luke, we welcome him. And I want to give a shout out to all of our students who are in the home stretch of the year. They're doing concerts, projects, competitions. They're all very busy worrying about what they do next in terms of the juniors and seniors, thinking about next steps. And I hope that they all have some time to enjoy the present and their friends and family, and hopefully some of the more of the joy that we have in our schools and in their lives before they move on. Tonight, just to give an update on what the board has been up to, we are in an exciting time of transition. We want to welcome Mike Volpe tonight, our new VP of HR. Welcome. He's jumping right into the fire. And we are grateful to Tom Venanzi and Judy Bronson, who's no longer with us, for their work in the interim. Tom is still here and helping us a great deal as our interim BA. And we're looking forward to a decision soon on our new head of facilities. During the month, we've been visiting our schools. We toured the DLI program, thanks to Betsy Baglio, and thank you to Deneen at CP. And we look forward to doing more tours and more visits so that we become more familiar with our facilities and we get to experience the classroom and see our kids in the classroom setting and our staff. Referendum project implementation continues, and Greg will give us a more detailed summary of that. But again, we're focusing on wellness, on doing it right, and being clear and transparent and communicating about how we do these projects over the next 2 to 3 years. So we're taking our time, and it's a very careful process. So we will continue. We will be reporting to you. We have a website that we are continuing to develop, and we will have more specific updates as we go along. But we've got 3 of the projects already out to bid, and we're looking forward with moving on with additional projects soon. And we are continuing to build and strengthen our relationships in the community. We had a meeting this month with the Princeton Charter School with our colleagues over there, and we talked about a number of issues that we share in common and ways that we can collaborate and possibly find cost savings, and the ways that we can support our students in a continuous way as they come from charter into our high school. We also have meetings with Princeton University and the municipality in the upcoming month. We are meeting with them on a quarterly basis to talk about shared interests and issues of concern. We continue with our future planning process. We have a future enrollment committee of citizens and board liaisons that will be meeting this week to look at some updated demographic information and looking at those assumptions and looking at what's coming back and how we're doing. It's a year on from the time that we did the evaluation last year, and we want to make sure that this demographic information is rock solid, so it provides us with a basis to do additional planning work as we think about our needs in the future. We are also working with the Planning Board and the Master Plan Committee of the Planning Board to begin a process of renewing the public element in the master plan, which involves school sites and where we're located now, where we're located in the short term and in the long term, and thinking about our community as a whole and where the schools will fit in. And we are doing a lot of work as a board to kind of understand our legal position and our tools and how we approach that process in a strategic way. We are also going out into the community as much as possible, and if there are events that you would like to invite us to, we are happy to attend. And in particular, we will be celebrating student voices at the Not in Our Town Awards Night on June 6th, and we'd like to encourage people in the community to attend. So we're very busy, we've got lots going on, and there's a lot on this agenda tonight, so I'm going to leave it there and let Steve take over.
All right, thank you, Beth. Good evening and welcome. I, too, would like to acknowledge and welcome Mr. Mike Volpe, our new Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Mike has been with us for 1 full week, and this is your first official board meeting. I can't guarantee that it will be a short one, but we're glad you're here, and in the short time that Mike has been with the district, he's already benefited us through his capability, his insight, and compassion. So we're grateful for having him as part of the team. We have 2 presentations tonight. The first will be a look back and a look forward at the priorities and the partnership of our special ed PTO. The second presentation will be an overview of our program review process, followed by some exciting, very well-researched recommendations regarding a new K-5 math program. Before the presentations, however, I want to say just a few words about the human impact of balancing our budget for next year. As most of you are aware, certainly the board is well aware, we began the budget process with a nearly $2 million gap between revenues and expenses. The explanation for that gap is it's long-term, it's structural, it's driven by a wide variety of factors. And we'll be talking much more about that at our next meeting on May 7th. We'll be talking about the 2% cap, rising enrollments, escalating costs, and underfunding by the state. But it is not the economic, legislative, or enrollment-related issues that reasons for the budget gap that I want to speak about tonight. It is the impact of that gap on the people in this district. The Princeton Public Schools is a human organization. The majority of our costs are associated with our salaries and benefits, which all the staff rightly receive to support the many services we provide to our students and their families. While we initially sought to close the budget gap through reductions in non-salary areas, those reductions were not enough, and ultimately we had to balance the budget by making some reductions in our staff. Those reductions will affect our teachers, our support staff, our administration. In some cases, we had to reduce whole positions. In other instances, we eliminated additional payments beyond the base salary that support a variety of services. When we could make reductions more naturally through retirements or resignations, we did so. Regardless, approximately 3% of our staff, our colleagues, our teachers, our friends will be affected by these reductions. Last week, we shared the news with those individuals impacted by the budget. Particularly to those for whom we will no longer have a position next year, I want to take a moment to thank them for their care, support, and inspiration of our students. and I want to acknowledge the loss the district and the community will feel. The external drivers that fueled the budget gap are not going away by themselves. And so I want to conclude by affirming the commitment this board and I have to find new ways to ensure that we can continue to maintain the outstanding education this community expects and our children deserve. We look forward to working cooperatively with our associations to find mutually beneficial savings in healthcare. We look forward to working with the town on cost saving through shared services and through thoughtful planning. We look forward to collaborating with the charter school on advocating for legislative change in the school funding formula. We look forward to aligning with the scores of other school districts in New Jersey which are facing the same economic pressures we are. And we look forward to the continuing support of our many community partners. With challenge comes opportunity. And the bottom line is this: I look forward to the many opportunities created in the years to come by this board, this district, and this community. We have our work ahead of us, but we're up for the task. So, with that, I would now like to introduce our special ed PTO co-presidents, Joan Spindell and Lindsay Cruz. These are really two remarkable people who help bring our entire community together in support not just of the 600 plus students with learning differences in our district, but really in support of measures that benefit all of our students in our district as a whole. So we're grateful for their partnership and the opportunity to listen to some of their ideas tonight. So welcome.
Thank you so much to the whole board for giving us the opportunity to have some time on your agenda tonight. We really appreciate being able to come here and speak to you. And for some reason, the slides don't look as they should. I don't know why those white bubbles are on there, but that's okay. Anyway, the next slide. Okay, so tonight we're going to cover a little bit about who we are, the progress that we've made, and the path that we see going forward. So who are we? We're a district-wide organization that supports all classified students in our district. And while the state mandates that we have an organization, we are so grateful for the partnership and that it has gone beyond just the state mandate. Next slide. Just to set a little bit of context in terms of who we are representing, 1 in 5 children in our district have some type of accommodation, either a 504 or an IEP, and we do have a disproportionate amount of Hispanic students who are getting accommodations. Quickly, the difference between a 504 versus an IEP, and we do have a packet that we'll be handing out to everyone on the board with further information, and I think more detail than we can cover up here. An IEP defines an individualized education plan, whereas a 504 describes how a child can access learning and focuses more on changes to the environment. What should be noted is our numbers are on par with the rest of New Jersey. So it's not like we have way more students who have IEPs. We are on par with the rest of New Jersey. Sorry. 2 types of programs that we offer. We offer programs that we lead and that the district supports. And then we also offer and support district-led program. There's district-led programs that we support. Next slide. Here's just an overview of the types of programs that we have. As you can see, we're very excited that many different types of programs are either completed or underway. There's a lot of focus on communications. We focus on collaboration and building our community. And like any ongoing organic organization, we have some work to be done in other areas.
So I think it's clear from what Joan said, and Steve as well, that we've laid the foundation for a really strong partnership. So we also just wanted to say thank you to the district and the board for your partnership. And we thought tonight we would focus on how do we move forward as we look to the end of this year and into next year and outline a few key actions and requests. And And the first is anytime you design with the perspective of special education students and families from the beginning, it saves time, money, and is better for kids overall. And we have had such a great experience with the district and with the board in that capacity, having parents serve on hiring committees, on councils, on key initiatives. So we thank you for that and hope to continue doing that. Where we continue to have work to do is on transparency and communication. I think we've given the example before, if you call a customer service line and you're stuck on hold in loop and you can't get a response, it escalates emotions. So the continued responsiveness, transparency of communication. We had a parent in one of our sessions say, sort of equate being a special education parent to The Legend of Zelda. If you ask just the right question in just the right way to just the right person at the right time, a room unlocks and you learn about services or you learn about opportunities for kids. But there isn't anywhere you can go to really understand everything that might be available. So what that ends up being is an equity issue, because it's your social networks, it's your ability to have the time to ask those questions, to show up, to be able to do that. And so continued transparency about what might be available in terms of programs, in terms of assistive technology, in terms of sort of executive function courses, anything like that, the more that that is transparent, the more the process is transparent to families, even though you cannot guarantee services and every child's needs is individual. I think from the board's equity standpoint in particular, but just in developing positive relationships, as parents, we tend to escalate because it's emotional for us. So the more that we've got responsiveness and transparency, it really goes a long way. And then I think a couple things, and Steve and Mickey are doing a ton of really great work in related to the superintendent's goals and to work that Mickey and her team have been doing around really ensuring that teachers are able to read the IEPs and understand what the needs of their students are in the class. So first, we thank you. And second, the next step is the disconnect that we hear from parents in then those services being implemented and showing up in the classroom. And the more we can do to provide teachers with the right supports and understanding and what that IEP means and what that looks like and how that should actually play out in the classroom and how to juggle the multiple accommodations they may have, the better. And then the other request that we shared with the board last year and is an ongoing conversation is the goal of benchmarking what we provide currently and our services externally. So those of you who have served in business might be familiar with the Net Promoter Score, which is just a way for businesses and organizations to understand how well are we serving our customers, how much would a customer recommend this? And it's a number of different factors. But I think the goal here really is to shout from the mountaintops the things that we're doing really well for kids. It's we mentioned to the board before, it's sort of like a job in operations. You only hear what's not going well, and you don't hear and celebrate the things that are going well. So being able to benchmark our programming, our responsiveness, our curriculum, our support externally really allows us to highlight the good work that's going on and to identify priorities to focus on in a resource-constrained environment to really understand where the needs are. And then the last piece that we wanted to just mention was about sort of going that extra mile, going beyond compliance, going beyond what the law requires for students and looking at the highest leverage ways to ensure the success, not just of the 1 in 5 kids, but the 5 in 5 kids. One of the things we know is that a lot of the practices that are good for students in special education are good for all kids. So we can actually lift the boat for all. And a couple things that means is really taking a person-centric approach. An every child known approach to really focus and to give teachers the professional development and support that they need to be able to support students well who have different learning styles. And the reason why we know this is important is this is not unique to Princeton. So these are some of the statistics that are about to come out in a report next month. It was a national survey of general educators across the country. Only 17% of teachers feel very prepared to teach students with mild to moderate disabilities. 70% say they struggle to support students with learning and attention issues, and only 30% felt like they could successfully teach students when they try their best. So I think that we share this because this is sort of a national systemic challenge that we're working on, but also to make the point that this is not sort of a special snowflake or a sort of Princeton parents advocating. This is a national need, and the more that we can support teachers to support our students, the better we'll all be. So, what does that mean we tried really hard to be like succinct because we knew we had 50 minutes, so I hope we're doing okay. So in terms of what that means going forward is continuing to deepen our participation in the committee meetings. We cannot express enough gratitude for being at the table and being able to sort of share lived experiences that can help us design well from the beginning. To continue to engage school principals in the discussion around supporting educators and supporting our students. And then to look for these areas where we can create even greater impact around professional development and best practices, and to have that transparency for families around what's available. Did I forget anything?
I think we did it.
So one of the things we have for the board as well is just because we tried to stick to 15 minutes, just some general information, common myths and facts about our students, but also some evidence around the practices that are good for students who learn differently, but evidence that it lifts the boats for all. So we're happy to discuss more and just thank the board for your partnership and support.
Any questions that you would like to address?
Can I ask you all a quick question about the IEP? So in our finance committee meeting yesterday, we were talking a little bit about the IEPs, and I guess if I understand them to be pretty lengthy, and on the board you put that it would be nice if all the teachers read them entirely. We were talking about some sort of synopsis of them. Is that something that, a one-pager that a teacher could get for a student that would, if they can't read the entire document because of constraints of time, would a one-pager work, you think?
I think the most important thing about an IEP is that it describes the goals and objectives for the student, and it describes accommodations and recommendations. However you convey that information so that the student can be in an environment where they're learning, where they're participating, and where they are succeeding is beneficial, whether it's 100 pages or 1 page. But we really need to make sure that our teachers feel comfortable knowing what accommodations to do, being able to accommodate students and a variety of students in a single classroom, and that the students are positioned for success. So I don't want to comment, is 1 page enough or not enough? What's enough is making sure that they know they know the child, they know what the student needs, and that they can deliver against those needs.
And what I'd actually say is it's the collaboration, right? So IEPs, as a parents, we know how long and complex they are because we're trying to navigate them as well. It's the collaboration within the school. If the case manager knows everything about the students that they're supporting, so thinking of creative ways that it isn't just like, please read these 5 40-page documents, but thinking about a way that this becomes a living and breathing process so that case managers are prepping and briefing teachers and giving suggestions at the beginning of the school year, but also throughout the school year, continuing to support and create those moments. Principals can create the time and the moments in the school schedule for collaboration to continue to make sure that kids are being supported.
One other question. You mentioned up there the CP Buddy program, and I think that was written in blue, which means it's ongoing.
So
Getting off the ground.
Getting off the
Okay.
ground. So there are programs in green and there are programs in blue. It was just really to give you an idea of where programs are in their process. And we're working closely with Eric on Mickey's team. I think he's writing a grant, and we're doing some special piloting at CP. What we like to do as an organization is, many people have heard me say this, walk, crawl, walk, run. So we tend to advocate for programs in a single location. Hopefully, it blossoms in that location, and then you can learn, expand, and grow the program, rather than trying to solve everything all at once. And so that's a program that is being piloted in CP that we hope will grow and blossom across the district.
And have you seen it used elsewhere, and did it do really well, and that's why you're using it here?
Well, I think we pulled the idea from two places. We did a program in the high school that was similar. It was actually run by a Princeton High School alum who learns and thinks differently. And so we piloted that program, but we started to think about how can we start that even earlier as kids are navigating feeling different from their peers and being able to find their way. There's a national program called Eye to Eye that pairs college students with learning and attention issues with middle and high school students. And so in some ways, we were kind of riffing off of a couple different models.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to thank you for Ginny's presence at our Equity Committee meeting. It means a lot. She brings a lot to the table. And I also want to thank you for your very inclusive and broad approach to have everyone benefit from your advocacy work. I think it makes a
Thank you.
difference, and I certainly appreciate your approach to this. Thanks so much for what you do.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your support.
Thank you.
I
I
like,
just have a couple of questions, if that's okay, just really quickly, sorry. One, about how many people do you have in your organization?
So we support all parents, so we consider all children with IEPs and their parents as part of our community. We have about 15 working advisory people, like we have.
Every
about-
school has a
yeah,
liaison, so we have someone at each school who we let parents know. And so when we meet with Mickey monthly, that's sort of we have an item on the agenda that's sort of what's trending. So we sort of make sure there's a point person at each school for parents to go to, but that can also sort of bubble up as we're sort of hearing and seeing things. And then, so we have the liaisons and we have some other board members.
And then we have a woman named Brona Kane, who she's sort of does a lot of community outreach. So she does get-togethers at local restaurants or local coffee shops. Obviously, Ginny does a lot of work sitting on committees and is running a special Saturday coffee talk. And we are always open, the more the merrier, and if people have a passion for a specific project, we will welcome them with open arms.
No, that's
And,
great. So
yeah.
that was my first question was, about how many people are actively
Yeah.
helping. You two are wonderful champions and great ambassadors, for, you've presented to us before, and I always appreciate, and I always have great takeaways when you come, so thank you. So I just wondered how many people do participate. We have in Cranberry, a new hire. Her name is Dr. Ashley Kipnis, and she's come to us, and she has a tremendous amount of energy would be an understatement, but she is really going to be working in that direction. So I would
Awesome.
really love to connect her with you and
Please.
let her learn from all of the great work that you're doing, because we would like to make sure that our students transition well from eighth grade to the high school. That's something that she's very adamant about, making sure that we're doing
huge.
well.
Yes.
It's much easier, as Annie knows, from collaboration time at the lower school and the middle school. The teachers have that. In the high school, that's a little more
can be very
difficult to
challenging.
team collaborate.
Yep.
So we just want to make sure that once our children get to the high school, that they have the accommodations that they need and that they're advocating for themselves in the appropriate way. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Please connect us, and thank you for your
Sure,
comments.
absolutely.
I just want to say thank you so much. I learn so much from you every time you're here with us, and really you provide a service to the whole community, so thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
I would like to echo that too, that when people ask me what makes Princeton Public Schools an excellent school district, your presence is really a part of that answer, so thank you. And I want to just ask two quick questions. One, when you talk about the opportunity of closing the achievement gap and opportunity gap, I wanted to ask if there have been particular issues, specific gaps that have come up more than others in your conversations. And also the 30% of teachers who feel like they successfully teach students with learning and attention differences. Do we know anything about who those teachers are, what criteria, what qualities or experiences are helping them to feel that way?
You want to take the second question?
yeah,
I'll
what was
take
the
the
first?
first. I'll do the first. You
Okay.
take the second. So start with the second.
So the second, so
start
I will actually, So two things. I can share with the board in about 4 weeks. The report will be public, so it'll sort of share what the profile was, but it was about 1,350 general educators across the country, rural, urban, suburban, sort of a spread. And then the data was essentially sort of weighted against the national averages to feel representative of the nation. So in terms of, I mean, there's a lot of things that teachers who do feel very prepared feel. So I think there's a couple of things just from teacher prep in the beginning. We isolate general ed and special ed. You have to pick one, and so from the very beginning, we sort of send the message that these are two very different things. So I think the teachers that feel supported, there's certainly a ton of data that teachers who are coming from dual certification programs stay longer, do better. I think then once in the job, I think because our preparation programs are not necessarily, largely what is in a general education teacher preparation program is like one course. And largely it's don't get sued, right? Or it's sort of just a primer to special education. So I think that then it is sort of on us as teachers, as educators get here to give more support, to include, and I think it's a couple things. One is foundational understanding of what are learning and attention issues, that they're brain-based conditions, tools, and a sort of a universal curriculum. So some of the things in what we passed out are things like universal design for learning. What are the school-wide systems that can encourage and support? So I think the more collaboration there is in a school, the more knowledge and support there is around approaches to teaching that help the 1 in 5, but help all kids. The more that is universal across the school, the more teachers feel supported and not like they're sort of in it alone. And I think the more support they have from a principal who's providing ideas and a special educator and specialists who are working together. So where teachers are looking at data and student work together and problem solving. There's probably a lot more, but well.
And then regarding the first question, in terms of equity, there are 3 places that we hear a lot of conversation. One is our definition of equity, and those who have sat on the equity committee with Ginny, we've done a lot of work to say equity is not just around race or socioeconomic background, but it includes equity for all learners. And we hope you hear this theme from us, that what's good for a special ed student is good for all students. And so we have been advocating that learning and differences in learning be a part of the equity equation and what you're looking at. The other concern I think that we all have is the disproportionate amount of African American and Hispanic students that are being classified. It may be that it's legitimate classification, but what ends up happening because of the way we do some small group teaching, it ends up that there is, it seems like there is just, that we might be putting students of Hispanic, and it just looks like a lot more like segregation. I don't know how else to say it. And then the third thing, which is something to consider, is we have so many classes for AP students. We do an awesome job of students who need more learning development, but we have a lot of students in our district who have what I call hidden learning issues. They're in general ed classes. They might have dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADD, and they present themselves as if they don't have learning differences, and they are struggling because they're in a general ed class. They have to take that general ed class to maybe meet a classification or a requirement for college, and there's no alternative. One example is chemistry. We did away with chem in context, and we're teaching chemistry to general eds in a general ed class to students who would do awesome in that type of class. And as you look at your math program, once you get into junior and senior years for math, same thing. We're tracking children into Algebra 3 because that seems to be the norm. Perhaps we should be looking at a general ed math class on how to apply math techniques, that doesn't require calculation for children that can't do it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you both, Joan and Lindsay. And I just want to say again, we're so fortunate in this district to have you and your colleagues who are so professional, and you put so many hours into this process. And how many people are on your mailing list?
About 900?
Yeah, I think 900.
900, right? 900 families receive your information, and you not only provide information to the board, you educate the board candidates, right? Everyone who runs for this board goes through you guys. You educate the board, you support our families, and so we're grateful to you. So thank you so much for
Thank you so
coming
much
tonight.
for your support.
Yeah, I guess just one final question on the last slide.
Yeah.
The requests. So it's a question for you and a question for Steve.
This one or?
The next one,
Oh, our final.
The last one.
The recap with the checks.
Thank you.
right, the requests. So
Yeah.
are those all equal in value, or are they prioritized? That's the question for you. And then I guess the question for Steve is, how do we respond to those requests?
We give Lindsay and Joan pretty much everything they want. But I guess here's what I love about what they said, and why the requests just make sense and integrate into everything we're doing. Like the idea that a classroom environment, a school environment, and instructional strategies that support our students with learning differences are actually elevating the performance of every single child is fundamental to our goals as a district. So we have, for next year, the same two goals we had this year. We're continuing those. One is around differentiated instruction, which has to do with a strength-based mindset, as well as looking at the many different ways, the strengths that our students demonstrate, and the many different ways that they learn. And then culturally responsive teaching. And what does that look like, from an awareness on the part of the teacher to the importance of race, culture, and learning differences, to the use of data, to connection with the family. So I feel like the goals that you're looking for are going to be embedded in what we do. And this idea of benchmarking, I know that's one thing as part of the superintendent's 3-year goals. Year 3, which is coming up next year, is around taking a look at our special ed program in particular, with a view to identify those things that we're doing exceptionally well, benchmarked against other districts, other educational institutions, and those things where we can improve. And so we look forward to having that data to continue to improve what we're doing.
And what we would say in terms of priority, we'd like you to pick at each of them. I think they're all important. I don't think you can put communication before or after teacher training, or reviewing our assessments, or working with the district and integrating, best practices. So again, back to the crawl, walk, run model. Some of these hopefully will be in crawl mode, while others will be in walk mode, while others will be in run mode. And we want to keep the list in front of us so that we know where we need to be on the journey to just getting better and better and better, and supporting children overall.
And I think just to that point, a final thought, I think when we have met with the board previously, I think one of the questions was like, sort of tweaking around the edges versus like, what is the ideal model? So we're sort of collecting a sample of schools and models that are sort of truly exceptionally serving all students well, including students who learn differently. So as a follow-up too, we'll be happy to share that.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What Lindsay and Joan just shared with us is a great precursor to what's coming next, because they talked about this idea of continuous program review, which is what great school districts do. And so as an educational institution, the Princeton Public Schools do continually and comprehensively review our academic programs. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from some of our really amazing math teachers and their supervisor about the recommendations that have grown out of a 2-year review of our math program. But before you hear from them about a specific academic area, I wanted to give our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Annie Kosek, who oversees the like, what do you have, a dozen academic areas, something like that. I wanted to give her an opportunity to share very briefly with the board and with the public the cycle of program review that we have as a district, and then the process of review for each of the programs. And then you'll get to see the outcome of that process when the math teachers and Kelly Curtis, the math supervisor, present in a moment. So Annie, if you want to take just a minute.
Okay. So I am happy to have a few minutes tonight to share with you our program review and curriculum writing processes. And very excited to present our recommendation for our new elementary math program, which is coming soon. But first, I'd like to walk you through our program review process and how we write curriculum. In 2015-2016, Steve got us started on a program review, and he asked our social studies supervisors to begin a social studies review. And that's what they did in 2015-2016. Continuing that, the following year, science underwent a curriculum review, health and phys ed, and that year, you see a little asterisk there, we started to look at service learning as well and see how service learning could be embedded into all of our curriculum. In 2017-18, last year, we did a mathematics review and technology. We spent a full year on both of those, but we had transition of supervisors toward the end of those years. And so we decided at the end, while we did present recommendations to SAC for both of those reviews, we decided that we needed another year. And so we spent this year with our new supervisors of mathematics and technology to continue those reviews. So as you can see, in 2018-19, we have been doing quite a bit. We're looking at our business program. We're looking at our school counseling, K-12. Computer science, we sort of picked that up mid-year and are doing a review of computer science, K-12. Again, we're continuing with mathematics and technology. And then, again, not full program reviews, but two important things that we're addressing is our gifted and talented program, and we are revising our K-5 report cards. So all of that is going on this year. If we follow in this 5-year cycle, next year we'll do a review of our ELA programs, our visual and performing arts, and world languages. So I just wanted to show you, if we continue with this process, in 2020 it would be 5 years to review social studies. So that would be, again, in service learning. We need to fit in there ESL bilingual and dual language immersion that year. And then again, 2021 is 5 years for science and health and phys ed, 2022, 5 years for math and technology, and so on. So we have a plan in place to do this 5-year cycle review of all of our curriculum, and we hope to maintain that as we move along. Okay, our program review process. As you saw, this is the process we use for each of the program reviews that we do. In between, though, we are always yearly evaluating our curriculum, looking at our programs. Supervisors and teachers will make recommendations for updates to our curriculum. So we are not just sitting tight for 5 years on any one curriculum. We're always looking at it and reviewing. But our formal reviews will be done every 5 years. So the first thing we need to do is to establish a committee of teachers and administrators, and we do that by looking at everyone who should have a say or has will have some impact on the work that we're doing. So the teachers who are teaching those grades, all grade levels will be represented, subjects will be represented, all supervisors and principals. Again, we make sure that we have special ed representation, ESL representation on the committee. So once we put that committee together, one of the very first things we do is to start to look at the data we have and start to identify what are the strengths of our current programs, where do we have some good and full enrichment, and where do we still need to enhance. We look at state and national standards. Those have been changing. We're working now in the science program with our next gen standards. So we're always looking to update with what is current in terms of state and national standards. We look at our curriculum maps, which is the curriculum that we currently have written, to see where we have gaps, where we might need to fill in some areas, or where we're repeating, and where we might be able to remove a little bit. We look at best practices, and we look at new resources, including textbooks and technology. We look at the amount of time that we spend on different pieces of the curriculum. So all of this is part of the review. We include parents by holding focus groups and providing surveys. And we gather a lot of information from parents for the group to consider as we move forward. We do visits with other schools. This year, I know the math teachers who are here today will talk to you about schools that they visited in looking at at our pilot math programs. That's something that's key to what we do. We're looking at, the committee then, after they finish their review, will make recommendations to SAC. And those will include our things we feel we need to do to improve our curriculum, materials that we might want to purchase, staff that we might like to recommend, professional development that we need. All of that goes to SAC for approval. SAC will give us recommendations, and if we need to do some revision, we do that, and then we present a final report to the board for approval. Okay. I wanted to show you, this was last summer. A few of these were done during the school year, but most of this was curriculum that was updated last summer. So we have a lot of work that we do in the summer. Some of these are brand new courses that we need to write curriculum for. Some of them just need little tweaks after we've used it for a year and we want to make a few changes. Some go through a little bit more revision, and this is all determined by teachers in their departments and supervisors who identify the need for us to take another look at curriculum. So right here, this is just one page. Now there's the second page. So all of this was done last summer. We are looking for probably this much or more being written this coming summer. We're getting our curriculum little by little updated to where we would like it all to be. What I'd like to do now, and I'm going to step over to where Gabe is, because I'd like to just show you how the public and parents and you can access our curriculum through our website. If you just wait 1 minute, Gabe, on that. Okay. Sorry, we're still there. The left side, on the left side, the curriculum components. We have, when teachers write curriculum, they complete different components. So the first 4 things that they do is they determine what are the enduring understandings that we want in this course, what are the essential questions that will help drive student learning, and then they look at what is the content, so what is it that we want students to know, and skills, what is it that we want students to be able to do. So those are the components that you will see when you look at our curriculum through our website. The right side, the right list, are also components of our curriculum, and those are there for teachers as they teach our curriculum. So they're going to see what performance tasks, what assessments we use with that particular curriculum, how we modify, how we accommodate. It gives them ideas for how to differentiate, how to maybe incorporate service learning into them, and it gives them specific learning activities that will help to teach that curriculum. So I'm going to just step over here with Gabe. Okay. So here we are in our new website, and if you go under academics, the first click is curriculum overview, and on the right side you'll see the curriculum menu. I'm going to start with the elementary curriculum. You click on elementary curriculum, And when we scroll down, you'll see all of our grade levels. I'm going to pick grade 3. There's a little overview of what's taught in grade 3, and then it says learn more about our 3rd grade curriculum, and that will take you to Rubicon Atlas. So if we want to look at grade 3 social studies, I'm going to click on that. And this is what it brings you to, and this is what it looks like in Rubicon Atlas, which is our warehouse or our holding spot for our curriculum. And here you can see, for 3rd grade, they have a geography unit, a civics and citizenship unit, Princeton history unit, and a making a difference in your community unit. And then if we go back to the top, you'll see across the top the enduring understandings. These are the things we want them to understand about geography. The essential questions. And the essential questions are there to help students focus and to delve deeply and think deeply about something. There is not a single answer to an essential question. It's multifaceted. It takes a lot of thinking and analyzing in order to get to that answer. And then here we have the content, what it is we want students to know, and then what it is we want students to be able to do, the skills. So this is what you will see. Okay. If I go back here, I'll just show you very quickly a middle school example. In the middle school, what we did was to put the curriculum in by subject instead of by grade level. So if I go to science, and I take Science 8, which is our 8th grade science, you see the same thing. You'll see the units that are covered in 8th grade science, and then their enduring understandings, essential questions, skills, and content. What we currently do not have on the website is our high school curriculum. We do, however, have the program of studies, and you can click on that and see that, what's happening there, Gabe? Oh, that was here it is, the printable. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. So here it is for now. But our goal for hopefully for the beginning of next year will be to have all of the high school curriculum on the website as well. All right. So let me just go to the next one. All right. So when each program review committee makes their recommendations to SAC, they are often lengthy and ideal, and things we hope that we can always make real. That doesn't always happen. The math program review that started last year had a very long set of recommendations. This was one of them, and I just wanted to show you. It was to review and revise the K-5 math curriculum to include more problem-based learning, increased opportunity to practice, promoting mathematical thinking, to apply extensions and applications throughout the program, and to use rubric-based assessments. So to that end, we needed to look at math programs, and we decided that we would pilot a few. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our teachers and our math supervisor, Kelly Curtis, and our 4 teachers who are here today are our math content team leaders. So they have played a very important role in these decisions, and they will share that with you now. Kelly.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you, everyone, for having us and giving us this time to talk about the very hard work that we have put together over the past 2 years. And I'll only take credit for this year because I just joined everyone here. So the first thing I want to do is share with you how extensive the pilot of the 2 math programs were and who we included in piloting. So you can see from this chart of names that we have every single grade level represented. And amongst those grade levels, we have teachers that are general ed classroom teachers, teachers that are special education teachers, teachers from the dual language immersion program, teachers that work with AIS students, teachers that work with ESL students. So we made sure to have representation of all of the students that have needs in our district. And I want to take the moment to have my team leaders come on up and introduce themselves to give you a little background about their part in this pilot. So come on up.
Hi, I'm Karen Athanasiadis, and I'm a first grade teacher at Riverside.
Hello, I'm Danielle Gargione. I'm a third grade teacher at Littlebrook.
Donna Eisenacher, third grade at Johnson Park.
My name is Michael Rodas. I teach fourth grade at Community Park.
That's it, that's all.
They absolutely deserve the applause. They have worked very hard. And I want to thank them for being here and all of the support that they have provided me in this endeavor. So I want to start off by just talking about a little bit about what happened last year and then what happened this year.
Great. So last fall, 2017, we started forming that math review committee, which was a K-12 committee that included teachers K-12, special ed, AIS, all different levels. When that committee was formed, we had a lot of conversations around goals, needs for our students in mathematics, and great conversations vertically, meaning like first grade teachers across from the 4 different elementary, and then really wonderful conversations horizontally, talking about from elementary to middle, where were our gaps, what did we need to look at, and then again from middle to high school. After that, in the winter, our meetings, then we developed a K-5 committee that we needed to look at and take what were our goals and get a lot of input from both parents and teachers for what would we need in a math program, a new program to come up. The parent meetings were, there were quite a few that were run. They were very popular. And there was a lot of input from the parents. What did you want for your student as a math student? And then in addition, we did that with all the staff at staff meetings at all the elementary schools. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about previously. There was a lot of desire to look at developing problem solving for our students, to look at help in differentiating instruction for them, hopefully looking at a big tech component to deliver that, and also really looking at developing them as thinking of themselves as math students. Then in the spring, we started meeting and hearing from different programs, the K-5 committee, where representatives from the different programs would come and present their program to us. You can see what was listed there: Envision, Everyday Math Forward, Go Math, My Math, and then also the Ready Math.
So the 2 that we chose to pilot were Ready Math and Everyday Math 4. We started this past summer with initial training for both of the programs. Into the fall, we began that implementation. There was follow-up training for both programs. And into the winter is where we really got into it a little bit. As Annie mentioned earlier, we were able to go to other districts in the state that use this program. We were able to see it in action. We were able to have a question and answer session with the teachers. We were also able to hold a video conference with the DLI teachers in Park City, Utah, of teachers who use this program in Spanish. So we were able to kind of get firsthand experience with that as well. We also held a half-day professional development for the teachers in the district where we were able to just give them some information on both programs to get some feedback from them on what they saw and heard. They were able to look through the programs and gather some information. And then we went to SAC with our recommendation.
So one of the biggest questions that I got from day one was, how are you going to decide? How are you going to choose between the two programs that you were piloting? And that is a very valid question. So I really made sure that I designed a way to evaluate both programs that was very much data-driven. And in order to do that, I researched different tools and decided on using this EQUIP rubric. And this EQUIP rubric is a very rigorous tool that evaluates curriculum program materials. You can use it to evaluate entire programs, which is what we used it for. You can use it to evaluate units of study, and you can even use it to evaluate as something as short as a daily lesson plan. And the rubric itself is made up of 4 different dimensions. And dimension 1 focuses on standards alignment. So when the first thing we do with any program is we want to make sure that the program is targeting our state standards. And we want to also make sure that it's not a surface level alignment. We will look for depth and breadth of knowledge with those standards. And we also make sure that it's engaging students in the mathematical practices. We want them to be engaging in mathematical discourse, attending to precision, making sure that they are able to not just do math, but write and discuss math. And we want to make sure that they are being challenged. So the dimension 2 really dives in deeper into those key shifts in mathematics that have happened over the past 10 years. And that is the focus and content. Does the program support grade level focus on major work? Does it provide coherence among the grade levels and within each grade band? And that coherence means, are we tying in what they're learning currently to previous knowledge and preparing them to be able to move forward and connect their learning to future skills? And then we also looked at rigor, but not just rigor vertically. It's not where we're looking to speed through algebraic procedure and keep moving forward. We want students to be challenged in problem-solving tasks. We want them to really be able to think deeply, strategically, and flexibly about the mathematics that they're learning. So we looked at all of those things. Once we were done with that, in the 3rd dimension, we looked at the instructional supports that the program provides for both teachers and for students. And we want to make sure that that program is supporting teachers in terms of meeting all of the new expectations of students, and then how are we delivering that instruction, and are we providing support to meet the needs of students and their various learning styles. So that's something that we took a look at specifically because we wanted to be able to have a program that would meet the needs of students that struggle in math, but also excel in math. So this is very much looking at that universal approach to teaching. And then, of course, the 4th dimension discusses the assessments that are provided in terms of, are we looking at just procedural fluency? Are we assessing just basic concept, or are we diving deeper into what we're assessing with our students? So this rubric, in terms of the rating scale, is each dimension criteria is rated on a scale from 0 to 3. where 3 is meeting most to all of the criteria in each dimension, and 0 is not meeting at all. So once we took each piece of criteria in those dimensions, we total it and give it an overall score. And the top is exemplar, and the bottom there, if it scores that low, you do stop the evaluation and you don't move forward. Okay? So we piloted Ready Math and Everyday Math 4, and here you can see the results for kindergarten through second grade on each of those dimensions by grade level. And you can see a very clear distinction in that data between the two programs. And then we did this for grades 3 through 5 as well. And you can see also that same distinction. And what was really great was that the entire team of pilot teachers came together and spent an entire day by grade level evaluating both programs. So there were lots of wonderful discussions. This was not an evaluation based off of what they liked and what they didn't like. It was based off of a true rigorous set of criteria. So this led us to then making sure that not only do we have this internal process evaluating the programs, giving us this recommendation to move forward with Ready Math, but we also looked at outside evaluation tools. So this is Ready Math Ed reports, where they are also reviewed with rigorous rubrics. They look at a little bit different items than we did. Specifically, the usability for teachers was a little bit different, and you can see Ready Math performed very well across the board. And the Everyday Math 4 is consistent with how we evaluated those programs as well, and not comparing quite, not scoring quite as high as the Ready Math program did. So I want to turn it over now to Donna to give you some more detailed information about her experience, because she did pilot the Ready Math classroom.
So I piloted Ready Math in grade 3, and as you can see on the picture, it's pretty much broken up into 3 main categories. Teacher-led instruction, which would be a whole group instruction where the teacher truly in front of the class leading. There's an online piece, and there's a progress monitoring piece, which I'll show you. Next. This is the classroom toolbox, the teacher toolbox. Each unit, thank you. As you can see, there are units, and within each unit there are lessons. Within each lesson are sessions. So unlike what we had previously, a lesson can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So it's 3 to 5 sessions. What Kelly's pointing to there is the online tutorials. So this, the teacher has access to as well, so I can show a video to my class for whatever topic the lesson happens to be on. I can also pull up a student instruction book in the second column and see exactly what the students have. The next one is a practice in problem solving, which is just that, more practice and additional problem solving. And then there's a full assessment portion. So this is all for the whole class instruction. On the right-hand side are what they have designed for small group instruction. For each lesson, there are prerequisite lessons. So if, for example, lesson 1 is understanding the meaning of multiplication, if I find that my class isn't quite up there yet, I can click on the little document there, and it will give me a whole lesson to teach my class or my small group or an individual student to help bring them to a spot that they can be ready on grade level for lesson 1. There's also an additional lesson plan they call it tools for instruction. So if the whole group didn't work, if the prerequisite didn't work, I have a third option, which gives me a whole nother bag of tricks to pull from as well. Also in the small group instruction, every lesson, so every week, every session, I've got access to games that they call them math center activities that directly relate to the lesson. Those games are leveled for on level, above level, and below level. So it's designed to be used in a rotation model, small group model, so the kids don't necessarily know that they're not playing the same level of the game that the group that was just in there before them. This is an example of a problem in the practice and problem solving book. The task on the left, is lesson 1. Lesson 2 is on the right. This is from the multiplication unit, which was unit 1 in 3rd grade, which was a major jump for my class. And we kind of let it be known to Ready Math, and apparently lots of other people did too. And it's now switched for next year. They've already made adjustments, kind of listened to everything we wanted, and we didn't even have to tell them. It was wonderful. This shows student growth within a practice and problem-solving question. Would you say there's 3 days between these lessons?
There were 3 lessons in between the problem on the left and the problem on the right. It is in Spanish. This is a sample from one of our DLI 3rd grade classrooms. But you can just see, even if you can't read the Spanish, you can see the increase in that student's ability to write about and respond to this open-ended problem-solving task.
Typically, a 3rd grader would tell you just the number. There are 6, and you're lucky if you get a label on the end of it. So a very, very big difference in product that the students are giving us, as well as persevering through a problem. Yeah. Typically, a 3rd grader would look at the problem, especially on the right, and say, I don't get it. Even if you say to them, did you read the question? Yeah, but I don't get it. But that's what comes out of, and that's unit 1.
And this was pulled from one of our classrooms, and this particular student was identified as a high-performing math student. So I said, can you show me some work from a student that struggles? I mean, that is one of our goals, is to meet the needs of all of our students. So here's the same task from a student that was identified as struggling. And you can see visually the incredible growth even in that student from lesson 1 to lesson 4.
There's an online portion to Ready Math. They call it iReady. First thing a student will do on iReady is take a diagnostic test, which will, what's the word?
It's adaptive.
It is adaptive. So the more questions they get right, the higher up the level they go. And this is the result after the end of the test, the overall placement actually for my class. So the green, you can see 71% of the students are at or above grade level, and it works its way through down to the no students, or one student, sorry, is performing below grade level. I can then click on the Exploring Domain Placements or Explore Instructional Grouping, and it'll actually group my class. If I click on Explore Domain Placements, I believe that's the next slide, this is what the results are for my class. So within the domains of numbers and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data and geometry, green is on grade level, yellow is 1 grade below, and I do have one student that is 2 grade levels below. But I can quickly see where my students are, where my classes my class is on each domain. The gray area is the actual names of my students. I can click on an individual student, though, and it'll give me even greater detail within that student, where they are and what they can and cannot do.
Wow.
So this is me clicking on a student. So you can see the numbers and operations scores, the algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data and geometry. When I click on algebra and algebraic thinking, I then get this report. If you look on the left, these are the things that this student can do. He knows how to multiply and divide with fact families, etc. Next steps on the right, it tells me where that child needs extra help. I can then click on all the blue links on there, and it not only gives me further information, exactly what they mean by problem solving and sharing equal groups, it actually gives me resources to pull from to help that student. That's the diagnostic test. Once the diagnostic test is given, I have a lot of data, but iReady has a lot of data as well, and it puts the child on their own individual learning path. This is the time on task for my class for a given week with their individual learning path. The goal for iReady is to spend about 45 minutes or 15 minutes a day online, on task online. My students figured out that you can't just pull open the screen and not do anything. It actually registers if they're doing anything. So you can see that 9 of my students were right within the green range, right within the ballpark, and I had 3 slightly overachievers that week.
This is for the week.
For a week, yes. I can also, the iReady gives the diagnostic learning path based on their diagnostic test, but I can assign a lesson, an online lesson at any time. So if you look on this slide, I can pick any domain, any grade, any lesson name. So one of the things that I've done is on a quiz day, so if, for example, tomorrow I'm giving a quiz on volume, but my next lesson I'll be teaching is mass, I can assign the mass online lesson as a pre-teaching for some kids. So now they've got a sneak peek as to what I'm going to be teaching in 2 days. So they have a leg up. I can also do it at a different grade level. So if I realize that somebody may have some difficulty, I can put them at a lower level. If I want to push somebody, I can push them at a higher level. I actually have access to kindergarten through 8th grade material.
Great.
This is a sample of what an online instruction might look like. This is a 3rd grade tutorial on understanding fractions on a number line. Oftentimes, they give a little scenario, a little situation. We've got 3 or 4 pretty cool characters, the kids say, that come on, and they have, in this case, I believe they're looking for lost treasure. And they find something on a map, and they've got to figure out where exactly it is. And it goes through usually a 17 to 20 minute interactive tutorial. So they don't just sit passively and watch, they're going to then have to interact with it. If you get it right, there's words of encouragement. If you get it wrong, there's no buzzer or beep. It's, hey, why don't we look at that again? And they pull you through it another way. They don't just say the same thing again, louder and slower.
Thank you, Donna.
Wait, I'm
Sure.
sorry, Donna. I can sense your enthusiasm for this program. Like, how did your kids react? Like,
They actually love it. They beg to go on iReady. Indoor recess, can we please go on the computer? Can we please use iReady? We don't use computers during indoor recess, so I say yes, though, because they're doing extra math work. they absolutely love it. The homework assignments they enjoy. They're thinking questions. They're not just rote questions. There's conversations at home. Parents are involved in a positive way. There's no tears over math homework. There's great discussions, and there's great, I told my mom that's how to do it. I wait till I go home tonight. And I mean, it's been fun.
Thank you.
So along with implementing a new program comes a lot of change for teachers and for students in the classroom. And this program is very innovative and very different from traditional programs. And it is very different from what we've had in district, which is the Everyday Math 3 Edition 3 program. Part of the implementation does require comprehensive training for teachers and for administrators and leaders in the district. So when you make this purchase and you implement it, the Ready Classroom and iReady company requires a commitment to 2 years of training to ensure that teachers and students are making the most of this program, because there is so much that it has to offer. So we do have a plan in place for this first year, starting this summer, where teachers are going to be introduced to the classroom component, and then throughout the school year, they're going to begin collecting that data and learning how they can use that data to inform their instruction. And what's really great about this company is, as the year moves forward, then they change that training to be tailored to your needs. So once you get into that February time of year where you are working with the program, you're seeing what's working and what's not working for you in your classroom, they come in and almost in a coaching way, assess your needs and provide support based off of those needs. And then along with that, we want to make sure that we are providing the communication to parents as much as we can. So our next steps for that is going to start with our PTOs. So we have the PTO council scheduled in April, and we are working on scheduling each individual building PTO presentations. And we are going to plan a parent night for the fall. We want to make sure our teachers have training and experience in the program prior to having a parent night, because we want to make sure that our own teachers are confident in what they're doing. And we will also be updating our math website with tons of information and resources for parents about the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have two questions, actually, since I live through everyday math. So my question is, how do children, or how do you anticipate for children who have had 3 years of everyday math transitioning to this new program?
I'm actually going to let Donna answer that question.
Mike and I actually had that situation as a fourth grade teacher. He probably had it a little rougher than I did. As I mentioned, our first unit was multiplication in third grade. That was a major jump from second grade to third grade. I looked at those prerequisite skills and did a lot of kind of quick little reteaching. Our focus period became an extra math class. Very, very quickly, they caught on and caught up once they realized they had to think, not just do. So it worked pretty successful. I also had students, I had 3 students move in mid-year, and I actually had 1 student transfer from the EDM 4 pilot into my class. It transferred, and that was seamless as well.
One other question has to do with, does this program require a computer at home in order to do the homework, or they can do everything in school online?
everything online can be done at school. They actually encourage that it be done in school, not at home. The at-home portion is traditional paper and pencil.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, well, thank you very much. Well, I just want to thank you, and thank you all. Thank you to the teachers for being here. Hearing about your experiences is really wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for laying out what you plan to do with parents. I think your enthusiasm, the students' enthusiasm, will lead to great parent enthusiasm for the program. So that's wonderful that you have a math night plan. Thank you. Thank you. Can I also say very briefly, I just want to remind everyone, Annie's been in her role less than 2 years, and Kelly has been in her role less than 1 year. And if we think about the great change and great continuation of what has been working, it's really, truly remarkable. So thanks to them and to all of our teachers who carry out this really important work.
Thank you so much. I had one question also, just Annie, to follow up. Thank you for the overview of the curriculum, and it would be great if we can have a copy for the board and we can put it in our fact book so we all have kind of this map, because it just orients us where we are. And I know that we, in our board meeting next month, I believe, will be approving curriculum because we do that every year. So what does that mean? Which part of what you showed us are we approving next month?
So you will be, you will be approving all of our existing curriculum. Obviously, we won't have the summer curriculum done yet, but once a year, you approve everything that we have existing, our body of work.
Great. So this was really timely, and thank you for giving us this
Yeah.
overview at this point.
So
Thank you.
I want to say a couple things. One, just ed reports online, third-party review of these programs. Ready Math K through 5 received a near perfect rating by the independent nonprofit that delivers evidence-based reviews of instructional materials. So I know you showed the ed reports up there, but really it just is. It sounds like a tremendous program. I appreciate the enthusiasm and the hard work that teachers did to really make sure that they were bringing forward the very best program to us. It's a good example of how the process works when implemented well. Just really grateful to our teachers for everything that you did. There was, to build on your question, Michelle, there are a couple ways you can implement a new program. You can roll it out slowly, 1 year at a time, K, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think these teachers considered that and were unanimous in their desire to jump in and do the whole program. And so before you ask, the money for that is in the budget. And so we can afford the materials as well as the professional development over the course of the couple of years.
And I'll just add that Kelly's negotiating skills were wonderful,
yeah.
and that got us within budget.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And
Thank
is this
you.
in
Yes.
both languages? I mean, can this
Yes.
be? It's dual language, okay.
Can I ask Annie, when, in part of the review process, one of the components is that we would be receiving achievement data within the area being reviewed. So can we expect that out of that, that we'd be able to look at that data so we can identify, when we talk about achievement gaps, we'll be able to talk about achievement gaps within a particular subject, for example?
So the committee itself will look at any achievement data that we have for that department, and they use that to go to the next step and say, all right, why are we seeing this data as it is? Is it our curriculum? Is it the implementation of the curriculum? Is it our text, our materials that we're using? So we use it in that way. I don't think we have reported on that directly, but it is part of the process that they use.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, I think we're moving on now to board committee reports, and we'll start with our student board members. Allie?
Good evening. For our 7th report, Sam and I surveyed students on the issue of vaping at PHS. Vaping and e-cigarette use among teens is often considered a national epidemic and has significantly increased in recent years. We wanted to see how this crisis has affected our school community. We asked students if they themselves had used vaping products, which products they used, and what students thought would be the most effective ways for the school to respond to the issue. A total of 154 students were surveyed, with approximately 40% of their responses coming from the senior class, 25% from juniors, 23% from sophomores, and 12% from freshmen. As usual, they responded through a voluntary online Google survey posted in grade-specific Facebook groups. Unfortunately, the freshman class is not as active on Facebook, which most likely accounts for them having a smaller number of responses. Of the students surveyed, approximately 1 in 4 students sampled said they had used a vaping device. We also asked students what brand of vaping device they used if they said yes. 75% said they used the Juul brand. Only 16% said they had used the brand Blue, 9% had used Logic. Additionally, out of the students that have vaped, 15% stated having vaped in school. We also asked students how they were exposed to vape products, and 47% said they were exposed through peers in their grade at PHS, 26% said they were exposed through older students at PHS, and 14% said they were exposed through students outside of PHS. As stated previously, we also surveyed students on how they believe PHS can better address the vaping issue. Approximately 50% of students said that PHS should better integrate the vaping issue into the health curriculum. 60% said there should be harsher punishment for selling vape products at school or using them at school. And 14% said that there should be teacher monitoring in the restrooms because restrooms are places where students most often vape during school. Lastly, we asked students who vape if they want to quit vaping. Only 27% said that they want to quit. We are currently working on our survey to present next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Ally. Are there any questions?
What was the number again that had tried it? The first percentage that didn't?
25%.
25%, yes.
The percent who have vaped in school, was it 15% of the 25, or was it
Yes.
15% of the 154?
It was 15% of the 154, but students only responded if they had clicked yes previously.
But it was still 15%.
It was still
of the
15%, yes.
And Ally, we were trying to get you a greater, I guess, a greater survey base, but the 154 seems to be kind of the number we're stuck on. We're getting about 150, 160 students. So.
But the 25% is consistent with other surveys that have been
Yep.
done in our region as well as around the high schools in the county.
Great. Okay, thank you. I think that, any other questions? No? I think that takes us to our committee reports, our board committee reports. First, we're going to start with equity. Michelle.
So we had an equity meeting on April 8th, Tuesday evening, and I'm really excited about the attendance at these meetings. We had 20 people come to our meeting, in addition to our 5 committee members. And we had Tara Doherty. I'm sorry, I keep mispronouncing her name, but in any event, she is a consultant that's working, providing professional development training to our staff and faculty here in the district. And she actually went through the study, the data they're working on, some of the training that's been going on in the district, and it actually is mind-boggling the things that they've been able to address, including the whole equity spectrum and talking about the history in Princeton and the achievement gap and engaging and involving community members and talking about influences on middle schoolers. One of the things that I was really excited about was that we had a number of faculty members and staff who came to the meeting on their own time, of their own volition, because they're very interested and concerned with this topic. So I think that the agenda, I think for us, is that we've got a really steep learning curve in terms of, as board members, around this whole issue of equity, and that's why I was really excited about the special ed PTO people being here tonight, because it really is much broader than race. And so I would like for this committee to continue information gathering and learning as we go forward. And so that's my report.
Thank you. Did you want to make a quick comment on shared services as well?
Yes, there was a shared services meeting last Thursday. I think that was the 19th. Unfortunately, due to my pathetic meeting scheduling skills, I was the only one there. But from the Board of Education. However, everybody from the town was there. But the good news is that we were able to proceed, and it was actually more logistic than anything. As some of you may know, we have been working with the town to identify potential consultants to help advise us on what shared services opportunities there may be between the municipality and the district. And so what we decided was that we would have electronic interviews so that we could, because some of the consultants are not from the New Jersey area. So we're going to have them video chat with the selection committee, and I've been charged with drafting the questions, and my co-committee folks, Bill and Greg and Brian, have been generous enough to offer to help draft these questions, so we can be assured that our concerns and interests are met, because the folks from the town already told me all the stuff they want to ask. So we will get together and draft those questions, and I anticipate the interviews will be sometime in the next few weeks. I don't think they've been scheduled yet.
Thank you.
Michelle, can I ask a question related to that? Do you know if the consultants you're interviewing have experience actually in the state, specifically because of how we're structured, with municipalities and school boards working together?
See, that's the challenge.
Right.
They either have school experience or they have municipal experience.
We are leading the way with this.
Right. They all have New Jersey
Okay.
experience, but
That'll
and
be
there's
very
one
interesting.
that has a little bit of school experience, but more heavily municipal experience. So that's kind of the challenge.
Good luck. Thank you.
Great. All right, facilities, Greg?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Very briefly, I shared an update on behalf of the committee as to the status. So I'll start with that first, of the referendum projects. So as many of you know, the Riverside is going to be the pilot site for the new AC units. 28 Riverside AC units have been ordered, thanks to the actions of the board and our administration. Expected delivery is in mid-July, so that the work can happen over the summer. Bids went out on April 10th for 3 other bid packages. Electrical upgrades at the other elementary schools, the high school gym, air conditioning, and then the work on installing the Riverside units. So those bids are due back by April 30th, and assuming everything works out okay, the goal is to have this board review the bids in order to potentially approve it at the May 7th meeting, so our next meeting. And the goal is to do that so that these 3 bid packages can be done during the summer, this coming summer 2019. There's a referendum working group that has been meeting weekly to coordinate between the construction manager, architect, district, and board. The facilities committee met on April 12th, April 15th, and we decided we're going to go to meeting every second week rather than every month with everything that's on the plate. So our next meeting is coming up on Monday. And at that meeting, we will be talking about some draft report summaries that would be going out to all board members. And so we're looking to have the Facilities Committee review these drafts and get their input on that, so we can get that out to board members as soon as possible. It'll be a weekly report to keep the entire board apprised of where we're going. All board members should have received invitations by now to join Viewpoint, and that will allow all board members to see in real time the status of all the projects, as well as all minutes for all meetings, who attends, schedules, bids, and I think that will be very, very helpful in terms of oversight. We will have training for the full board as well on that. And Our next meeting is Monday, so we're going to be going to every 2 weeks, and with the idea being as well to get the information back to the full board as quickly as possible so that everyone is involved. And on Monday as well, we'll be talking as well about other opportunities to involve the public as we go forward, and the status of upcoming projects as well.
Can I just make one small request, and that's that you and Bill and Tom somehow coordinate so that as you come to the full board to ask for approvals for the bids, we kind of know how we're doing against the estimates that were prepared, so we don't, so it would be helpful to know if any of the bids are on the high side, which might have an impact on something downstream.
And there's a draft sort of approach to that we'd like to have the Facilities Committee take a look at as well before going to the full board.
Questions? No? Okay. Finance, Bill?
Finance. We met yesterday at 2 p.m. in this room. Me, Greg, Beth, Dan, and Debbie were there. We did our regular review of the financial reports and the bills for March. Then we moved on to our ongoing efforts to encourage employees to switch to high-deductible health insurance plans and discuss how that's going. Debbie has attended a couple of the meetings with the employees where the representatives of our insurance and benefits plan administrators have been there, and she unfortunately reported that there's been very little turnout for these two presentations held thus far, so hopefully we can come up with a way to get more employees to come out there to look at these plans that are actually really beneficial to them and the district. We discussed trying to figure out how to encourage the PAA members to switch to these high deductible plans and then use that to leverage other members to look into this more closely. Jobs will be saved when people switch to these plans, and you still get great health insurance. I've used it myself. We also discussed, Tom brought up an interesting note, being new to our district, that we don't have a reinsurance for our prescription drug plan, that we funded out of pocket. And so if someone has an unusual condition that's really expensive, it would hit us very hard beyond the budget. So he has been looking into a reinsurance plan, which is $60,000 to $70,000, that would cover us above like a $3.5 million hit. So that might save us some in a significant way in the future. We started on a discussion of our analysis of the plant operations and maintenance costs. Tom, we asked him if he could put that on the agenda, and he did that, as well as did a deep analysis and put together a report for us, which at least I greatly appreciate. There were some really interesting numbers there, and we'll be going over that more in the future with other areas to see how we can help the district control the costs. We discussed the update to the budget, which will be discussed on our May 7th meeting, and I think that was really it. Our next meeting is May 20th, 2 p.m. here.
Thank you.
Open and public's invited.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we'll move on to personnel with Debbie Braunfeld.
The Personnel Committee met on Wednesday, April 17th, and I also would like to welcome Mike, our new superintendent for HR. Princeton has a great hiring process for administrators that includes staff from many departments and schools, community members, and members of the Board of Ed. The finalists for Director of Plant and Operations are meeting with Steve. The assistant principal search is ongoing, and there will be a posting soon for the business administrator position. The board will be approving another sick leave request tonight. Responsive classroom training has been scheduled for August 28th and 29th for all JW and elementary school playground and lunchroom aides. Tonight, the board will also be approving the 2019-2020 job description manual for all staff positions. This approval is done annually by the board. Tomorrow, the Personnel Committee will be meeting and reviewing all tenure and reappointment decisions for the 2019-2020 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Then we're on to policy. Greg? Jess?
So on behalf of Jess and myself, just very, very briefly, we met on April 12th, and we took actually a very deep dive on the vaping. So thank you very much, Allie, for the student report. That's really helpful. We were going to...
Actually take a deep dive.
True. So, just as a heads up to the full board, we'd like to come back in May with much more material about, we're looking at the NJSBA model policies around vaping, and with some recommendations on that for the full board, along with a report on what our administrative team is doing at the high school and the middle school. So our next meeting is on May 10th, and we'll bring more. And just one final note. Last year we developed a model to try to get through some more of the transition into our new policy manual. So I just wanted to thank Evelyn Spahn for agreeing to continue that tradition. So Evelyn and I will be working on that while Jess will be leading the vaping and the other large areas. And that way we can hopefully get more traction on both sides of the policy question. So thanks, Evelyn.
Do we know for the vaping, are they going to put something in the handbook in the high school?
That's what we'll be reporting back on, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Student achievement, Betsy?
Thank you. We met on Friday, April 12th at 11 o'clock. It was a long meeting, much of which actually you heard this evening, so it'll be a short report. Joan Spindell and Lindsay Cruz came to present a version of their special education PTO presentation to us, and we provided feedback in advance of tonight's presentation. Supervisor of Mathematics and Business, Kelly Curtis, attended with the same 4 teachers to also share the process for recommendation of adoption of Ready Math, which is very exciting. Again, just to reiterate, we are approving the adoption of the program on tonight's agenda, not the purchase of the program. The details of that are still being worked out. We want to thank Tom, our interim business administrator, for attending. He's coming back this Friday as well. We're revising the process of having all overnight trips approved by the board. There will be an intermediate step now that involves when a request goes to Annie's office, it will then go to Tom's office to go to our insurance company for approval, even trips that are repeat trips before they come to student achievement. We will then look at those trips and then put them on the full board agenda or decide not to. Tom is returning on April 26th to talk about insurance coverage for these overnight trips. What does it actually cover? Getting more information on that. What do we share with parents? And how do we get in touch if anything changes before a trip takes off? Kelly Curtis and Jason Burr shared with us some very exciting changes they'd like to make to the middle school math sequence. They are still working on some of that. We will hear from them later on in the school year, but we're very supportive of their work as well. We then discussed the issue of PHS class attendance, specifically that there's seemingly, in some cases, no consequence if students do not come to school or come to school and don't attend a class. So we talked about the connection to student engagement, and we will return to this topic. We have the new PHS principal, Jessica Baxter, coming to our meeting on Friday, so this is one of the topics with which we will welcome Jessica. And we do have a meeting Friday, April 26th at 11:30, and we invite and encourage the public to attend.
Well, thank you, Ray.
I ask a question? So when you review the attendance issue, if you could also talk about the racial disparities in terms of the attendance practices of the majority and minority students, because we had a person come to you were there at the Equity Committee meeting and talked about the broad disparity. And the second question I wanted to ask is, the committee going to take up the issue around the high school musical?
Yes. So Patrick Lenahan, I believe, is coming in May. Is that right? May 10th. We were not sure exactly when that would be, what would be scheduled, but that review, some considerations of that program, both that specifically, but then also the program in general as far as when students are able to audition and take part. So that is something we'll talk about in May. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Now I think we're moving on to our...
I have something. Yep. So, Madam President, I'd like to notice to make a motion per the Roberts Rule on the opportunity to determine the correct retention rules for documentation at Valley Road, move PPS technology to Valley Road, move PPS staff from the trailers back to the PHS basement, remove trailers from PHS, recover 3 parking parking spots for a cost savings of $50,000 a year, which is what we pay for the trailers. So I'd like to make a motion.
I actually think that's not in order on the agenda. Perhaps when we get to new business, you could make a new motion like that.
Oh, is that when you do it? Okay.
If I
I
check
didn't know
my
when you do it.
parliamentarian over here, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll come back to that, Debbie. Thank you. Right now, we're on item I, public forum. So if any members of the public would like to come and speak on agenda items, the podium is yours. We request that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and that you identify yourself, name and address, please.
Corner Lane. I was just curious, on the calendar, I'm happy to see that the committee meetings are starting to appear on the district calendar online. I'm just wondering, are those all public unless they say specifically closed session? Because I know in the past, sometimes some of the committee meetings are closed for various reasons. So anything that's listed there is an open public meeting?
No. Like with
Personnel would not be.
Personnel is never.
So is there a way that could be noted maybe so that people don't show up thinking it's a public meeting because it's in the public calendar?
Point taken. Thank you, Peter.
Because I see
Yeah.
there's an all-day meeting on Wednesday or something for reappointments, and it seems like that would be a closed meeting probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I don't want to show up for no good reason.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If no further public comments, then we will move on to our personnel agenda, item J. And the first action is approval of the personnel actions. Can I have a motion to approve? Bill, in a second. All in favor? Dan, show of hands. It's unanimous. Passed. Thank you. The item J2, job description. That was J1.
That was J1.
Yeah.
Personnel action.
Yep.
We have some things to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just moving.
We have a retirement.
Yes,
some
yes, okay,
retirements.
yes.
And I know, Jess, you wanted to.
Microphone.
Sorry. I know, Jess, you wanted to speak about Paul Chapin, as do I, so I.
I just will say it's been a long time since I had children at Riverside, but I live next door, and I literally every time I walk by and I think about Paul and the Riverside the tree song. And,
The tree song, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we are all so fortunate to have in our school district those very very special educators who change lives and whose impact on children's lives in such positive, such meaningful ways contributes way beyond their graduation from elementary school, and he's one of them. And so I will continue to think of him when I see the school and think of the tree and all of the roots that have been planted there. So I'm just really grateful and wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you. And here's the really great news. Paul was there for 35 years as the music teacher. He also served for 2 years as the interim principal and was absolutely instrumental in helping that community heal and thrive following Bill Cerullo's passing. The great news is he's retiring, but he's still going to be planting roots and helping kids grow because he's going on to be the head of school at the New Jersey Boys Chorus School in, the Newark Boys Chorus School in Newark, New Jersey.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it's a grades, I think, 3 through 8
That's great.
school for boys, and they perform all over the world. So they're very fortunate to get Paul, and he will continue to change lives.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything further? Then we move on. J2, job description manuals. I think that's a consent item, so we'll move on if there's no questions. And then we're going to go through a number of items that are
Can I
consent.
ask a question on that? Which committee reviews that?
Well, it's under personnel. We don't look at each job in detail. I mean, it falls under the director. But if you want to look at it, the files are in the office. You can go look.
Okay.
One of the things that we do is when a job comes before us that is not necessarily a new position that we're filling it, we do review the job description, but in its entirety, no.
So it's like the policy manual? It is. Yeah. So, yeah, we do approve job descriptions from time to time when they're new, even as the board, they come on to our agenda. But I think it's probably like the curriculum, once a year, we probably have to approve everything. Mike is nodding there. You want to make a comment on that?
Yes, that is correct. And if there's any administrative changes in job descriptions for administrators, that has to come to the board for approval. And I'm still learning the process here, but I'm thinking that Mr. Cochran, you can correct me if I'm wrong, for other job descriptions that are not at an administrative level, those typically go to the chief school administrator for approval and then are annually approved with the motion that you have in front of you today.
Okay. And I'm sure if you wanted to sit and go through it, you would have access to that. Okay.
It's just a question of process, since we're being asked to approve something, and I guess nobody's actually seen it or reviewed it in total, other than...
Yeah, I think it's it's a required action. That's why we were, for example, for curriculum, I was hoping that we had this today with this discussion about what is the curriculum that we'll be seeing next month, because it's such a significant item. This item, I assume you can go see it if you want to look through it.
Volunteering for an ad hoc job description committee head?
It's your job. You got it. So I'm going to go through now a number of items that are consent items. We've had the opportunity to look at those and ask questions, just so the public knows. We may go quickly. I will read the titles. If people have questions, please interrupt me and we will consider your question. So the first one being K1, Educational Consulting Services, Allison Rainville. K2, Educational Consulting Services, Shabbat Jewish Center of Monroe. 3, Educational Consulting Services, BLV Consulting. 4, Educational Consulting Services, Math Foundations, LLC. 5, Program Adoption K-5 Math Program, as we talked about. 6, Student Day Field Trips. And is that an action item, Tom? That's an error. It's an error, all right. And those are also came through student achievement, I believe. And 7, student overnight trip, and that one is to the Odyssey of the Mind World Finals. And then we're on to item L, student services special education. 1, educational placement special needs pupils 2018-19. Number 2 is grant application amendment IDEIA F fiscal year 2019. Number 3, settlement agreement. Talked about that in closed session. We're on to item M, business, finance, plant, and transportation operations. We're on to the financial reports, which requires an action. No, it doesn't, it's consent, sorry. Financial reports were reviewed by the Finance Committee. Item 2 is revision of date of public hearing on the 2019-20 budget. And we are revising that date because our original calendar had a date that was not within the permitted window for approval, so we had to move that meeting. Item 3, purchase of unit ventilators. This is for the Riverside pilot for the summer. Number 4, formal bid reject bid proposal for the construction of the outdoor amphitheater at Johnson Park. And does anyone want to just comment why we're rejecting it? I believe it was simply, would you like to?
No, I just had a question on it.
Yeah, my understanding is we're rejecting it because it came in significantly higher than the budget that was available for that.
And is this the project that the JPPTO is paying for, yet it's going through the district process for insurance reasons?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is that correct?
And yeah, in Facilities Committee on Monday, we'll be talking about this further.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Number 5, transportation agreements 2019-20. Number 6, fire and evacuation drills. Number 7, travel and related expenses 2018-19. Number 8, travel and related expenses 2019-20. And that brings us to our consent vote on all of these items. Can I have a motion? Greg, in a second? Bill? All in favor? Would be unanimous, passed. Thank you. And now we're on to item O, public comment on open topics. And it appears we have no public comment on open topics. I think then if, Debbie, you wanted to bring something.
So I'd like to be noticed to make a motion on the opportunity to determine the correct retention rules for PPS documents at Valley Road, move PPS technology to Valley Road, move PPS staff from the trailers back to PHS basement, remove trailers from PHS, and recover 3 parking spots at PHS. This would be a cost savings of $50,000 a year, which is what we're paying for the trailers.
Okay, so you're making a motion.
To review this, to do a cost savings on it,
Well,
to do an analysis on it.
yeah, you listed a lot of very specific
Well,
actions.
it's a whole process. Bottom line, it's to get rid of the trailers, but you have to backtrack to get rid of the trailers because the people need to go somewhere. And where I want the people to go, there's other people who need to go somewhere. And where I want those people to go, we have documentation. And so I want to review the policy to see if we can put all this documentation online, do an RFP. You know, I have no idea. Or if not there, I've heard there might be some space down in Valley in JW's basement for the.
So this is moving the documents that are upstairs in a big, huge room and then moving.
Do I need a second?
And moving the Gabe and his group upstairs.
I just, at the moment, point of order. First, so moved, and do I have a second for
I
the discussion?
second the motion.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, now we can have discussion.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Bill.
So make sure I understand, this is the movement of the documents to JW, the people from PHS to the upstairs here, and then the teachers from the trailers to the,
Can you pass that to
from the trailers to the basement offices? Okay.
So, one of the things that we heard was a wonderful presentation, right, on the curriculum K through 5, the math. And I think what struck me is that it was a 2-year process. And with a 2-year process, we got a great result and a great outcome. And a board like ours has to strike a delicate balance between working on short-term critical items and planning for the future. And so, we have all these records, and I understand some of our retention policies are as long as 100 years old. Some of our records are at risk. We've had mold. And so if something were to happen in the room where paper records are, you could place those records at risk. And so if we digitize them, it would be a best practice. And we're coming up on the summer. And the summer, there's opportunity to provide, potentially have less expensive labor to do it. And if that was not cost-effective, was the option of moving the records to the basement of JW, which would potentially free up this space. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. Again, the budget, we've said this, we don't want to look at the budget in February and have a big discussion. I would love to start working on some cost-saving things, now. And this is one of them. I have several others, but I guess I can only motion one at a time. But I would love to be able to start looking at this.
I guess this is something that, again, we as a board, we have certain work that we do based on our goals for the year, and we work those out with you on an annual basis. And I guess this would be kind of a new priority that we would be introducing, because, how would you, it's
Well,
kind of
I'm
a new
thinking,
project.
we could even have an ad hoc cost savings group, which I'd love to chair, because our problem is the budget, and we don't have a group, and finance doesn't do a lot of cost savings, or maybe they could, and then we can add that to theirs. But I just feel like we need to start looking at cost savings for the budget now. And this is one of them, and I'd be very happy to chair a cost savings ad hoc committee.
And to
I'm not sure that this is actually a cost savings issue. I think it's a facilities issue. I think that it's a very good and appropriate recommendation, and I don't think those trailers need to stay there forever. I think we were hoping that we would move ahead with a 3-digit referendum rather than a 2-digit. And I think that we really do need to look at what we're going to do with those trailers long term. So I think Debbie has a point. My recommendation would be that to take this one step at a time. This actually would belong, I think, in facilities, in committee. Let facilities look at it and then take it through the paces and see where it goes. We're a board by committee. It belongs in committee. We don't need to open a new committee to do a great idea. Let's evaluate it. Let's see where it goes. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It's a good idea. Let's see if we can. Let's see where the stop points are and where it leads. I mean, Debbie has a good point. We got to turn every rock over. We are between a rock and a very hard place. And we're paying $50,000 for those trailers, and our teachers are not where they can touch our children. So I think there's a lot to be said about what she's saying. But we're board by committee. So would you be comfortable if we began in committee and then reported back out?
And
I'm afraid if it goes to facilities with the referendum, it won't have the, it won't have the energy behind it. We'll get lost.
Could there be could one thing go to facilities and one thing goes somewhere else? I'm not sure. I don't, we're doing committee work at the board table, but I don't want the idea to be lost, and I'm not sure where her idea belongs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be in 3 different committees: policy, finance, and facilities. But what I'm hearing is that Debbie first of all, she's focusing us on the fact that we need to do everything possible to reduce expenses, to seek efficiencies, and also sort of separately to look for other sources of revenue.
Right.
And we've done a small amount of that. In a year, there's been some focus on the healthcare savings account where we haven't gotten a lot of traction.
Yep.
And so Debbie has one idea that Dan agrees is one worth pursuing, and Debbie knows she has other ideas. So I think at a minimum, we need to come up with, we all need to agree that this is important.
Yeah.
And think through what kind of process we can put in place that doesn't require complex interaction of numerous committees.
Right. Well,
to begin looking at some of these saving issues. And Debbie has identified some, and Dan has identified some, and members of the community have identified some related to energy and other things. So I just, I agree, this really has to be part of our agenda from day one for the upcoming year. And to the extent that there's an opportunity to get started this year, we should try to figure out what that is.
Yeah, and maybe it's some sort of working group, right? Where we just say we throw a working group together targeted at this problem or these suggestions. My only concern is that we start going down rabbit holes, and we've got limited staff time, and we've got all of this requires other people to the extent that board members can help track down pricing on digital documents and that type of thing. But again, we're kind of a little bit out of our lane, but I agree it should be a priority. Like, what are we doing with those trailers? That's a good question. We haven't talked about that.
Without our facilities person, we're a little 3-legged here. So maybe it's something that waits until we hire a facilities person, and maybe that's, I don't know. I don't have a good answer, but it's certainly not an idea that we should ignore.
No, I agree. I agree. Well, can I just
What's the
ask
difference
Steve
between
what
a
he thinks?
working group and a committee?
I think a working group is even a bit less formal. It's just, we pick some people, we say, here's the task, here's the charge, report back.
Well, like for the Riverside Courtyard, was that a working group or a committee? I know I was heading
would've called it a working group, but,
I know, to Debbie's point, I mean, just, I don't know, a 10 by 15 foot courtyard at Riverside has been
2 years.
a Herculean I mean, it's just, I'm stunned
Yes.
at how hard it is. And so I would hate to, I just, something like this, which is even bigger, it needs more dedication than one more bullet point on finance or facilities, I think, because just my experience with trying to get bids for the pavers, which Gary Weissman is trying to do. I mean, I'm stunned at how hard it is to get 2 or 3 bids.
But we are talking about, it will be a new person in that job, right? And it'll be a different way of working. And I
Yeah.
do think you can think about it as going through facilities and perhaps a working group that is under facilities, because that's where our director of facilities will be meeting on a regular basis. But we could potentially involve other people. There's no reason, I think, that you can't have something that lives in facilities but potentially involve, say, Debbie, because you have energy and time for it, or well, Dan, you're on it already, but what do you think, Steve?
Well, I began my comments tonight by saying we have some external forces that are not going away, that are going to make it really difficult to balance revenues with expenses. So we have to think creatively. But we do function by committee as a board. I think what you raised, Debbie, is a responsibility that all of us have to be thinking of more efficient ways to do our work and to do things better and more cheaply if possible. And so I can imagine personnel might come up with strategies for achieving that. I can see things coming out of finance as they have already. I can see things coming out of facilities. I think all of us need to be thinking that way. The specific recommendation you're making does have a lot of parts to it. A lot of it is facilities based, and I would just want to make sure that if we were going down that path, that we were in sync with the referendum planning. One thought would be that that particular suggestion could live there and be evaluated there. We'd have to start with, even before we get to the cost of digitizing, which has been researched, and so I think Stephanie Kennedy probably has proposals on what it would cost to digitize. We're looking at probably at least $50,000 for that.
Break even.
And before we get to that, there's a piece of we have to organize all those files up there, many of which are confidential special ed files. And so it becomes a personnel, labor-intensive issue to go through those and coordinate them. Not everyone, we just can't put someone in there to do it because they're confidential files. So there's a labor piece, a time piece, but stepping back and sort of echoing what's been said, we need to be thinking in different ways. So I applaud the creativity. I think all of us need to be throwing out ideas, and then we need to find a way to evaluate them and see how we can move forward.
But I feel if we don't have a place that houses them, like an ad hoc cost savings, we're going to lose them. I mean, Brian says he knows people in the community have stuff. I know teachers have ideas, but if we have no place for them to come, the ideas or anybody to be responsible, they'll get lost. They really will get lost. I mean, I was in finance last year, and we spent a long time to come up with these great ideas for health, and it takes a long time. I'm not saying this is going to take, any short time, and I understand there's a whole labor, which is why I've written kind of out all the things. But we need to start somewhere, because honestly, in February, we're going to hit the same thing, and it's going to be worse. And we're not, I mean, there's no way we're going for another referendum in the next year. I mean, so we have to come up with some other ways to make room, because the first one won't be done. I'm just afraid it's going to get lost, and if no one has ownership. That's just my opinion.
Michelle.
I think that your idea is a good one in a very broad sense, and that is, when are we going to get rid of these trailers? So if I look at it as a policymaker, if I look at it that way, not the nitty gritty details, because that's not my job, but hey, we would like to have these trailers gone in 3 years or in 2 years or whatever it is that we say. So then we can let the people whose job it is to do that figure out what do we do with the files? Where can we move people? Kind of all those details. And I would like to see us come up with high level ideas and to bring input in from the community, and so that we can frame it in a way and say to our leadership, this is what we would like to see. And so it's up to you to figure out, how do we do that, respecting privacy, paying attention to the budget, putting people in places to work that are healthy places, that are not, that are appropriate and safe for the tasks that they're supposed to do. That's not something that I'm equipped to do. I don't have the knowledge to do it, nor do I have the time, and that's not what I was elected to do.
Yep.
So, but to have the big idea and the broad idea and to tell Steve what that is and ask him to make it happen, I think that's our job. So,
It's
so I
not our
applaud
job
you.
to run the district, it's our job to
There
make
you
sure
go.
the
So,
district is run well.
I love the idea that we should come up with these ideas. We should collect them. We should communicate them on a regular basis. But I think we have to leave how it gets done
Implementation.
to our
And I would
leadership.
say, the big idea, I totally agree. What is the plan for the trailers? But then the issue is, and what is the plan for the trailers, and what is the plan for our document retention? Because we know that we've got rooms full of boxes of documents, and we need space. So there's two big space questions. But when you go to facilities, then the question is, by the way, we're doing these referendum projects, and one of the things we're talking about is we have no swing space. And we're going to be redoing guidance, and we're going to be disrupting the gym. And so we don't know yet exactly where everything's going to go. So this is a piece of it, and so we should capture it and not lose it and say we want to know what's happening with the trailers, but we don't know the answer yet, and we have to see where it shakes out in the process. But the boxes of documents, the same, we saw that, we talked about it last year.
But did we do
We
anything?
didn't do anything about it, and so I think that's something where we say.
Is there referendum money or grant money to do documents like that?
There's no referendum money.
No, not in this referendum, but is that something you can put in a referendum legally? Anyone?
I wouldn't put my name on that.
No.
I mean, it's expensive.
I would just say one thing we haven't said is let's assess how, if at all, the trailers are used. Are the teachers who are assigned to the trailers using them as their office? Are students, as we had thought, coming out to the trailers to meet with teachers? So that's almost a piece student achievement can own where, just assessing how they're used, because we never bought the trailers to keep them forever. So I think it's really timely to bring it up. And is it 50,000 per trailer, or is that 50,000 total?
Total.
It is total, okay. I would also say, as we plan our goals for next year, I would be in favor of cost savings, creative cost savings being a goal, brainstorming on a consistent basis. And maybe if it becomes one of our goals in the next go-round, then it is really something that we do.
We could potentially turn the space where the technology people are into classrooms even, We've said overcrowding at the high school is a problem. We have a potential solution to 3 classrooms there. And so, the first step is digitizing versus moving to JW. If we can attack that, there are approved vendors out there for digitizing records. The board should, or committee should look at the price for that. We should investigate the basement of JW, which I think, Steve, was one of your suggestions, to see if digitizing was too expensive, we could move the records to there. So we have two options there, digitizing or moving the records. We need to look at A and B. Once you make a decision on that, you plan to move for technology to move where the records were. That would probably take a year, might take 18 months. Gabe is going to comment. Yeah, it may take a long time.
But just to come back to Michelle's point again, I think we need to identify the problem or the issue, and we need to put it to Steve and his team and say, please tell us within a reasonable amount of time what you propose to do. And here's some ideas, but we're not going to be going and pricing, and it's just not our job. We're out of our lane.
I wasn't going to price. I mean, if you read through this, we would have the correct people do an RFP.
But we're telling them what to do, and that, again, is not our job. Right?
The big cost savings
Once we're talking about
in getting rid of the trailers.
We're talking
So
about
to
the
me, that's the big thing.
use of educational spaces. We want recommendations to come from our school leaders on best use of our facilities, right? I mean, cost savings we can all have as a piece of our the thought process that we're using, but I think once we start talking about how we're using educational spaces, I, as a board member, want the recommendation to be coming from our school leaders on the best use of those spaces.
Some of the most valuable real estate in Princeton is holding boxes of documents that are 60 to 70 years old. So upstairs is some of those valuable real estate in Princeton. I don't know, it's like $1 million an acre, is it around here? $2 million an acre? I don't know how many square feet that is, but we're spending a huge amount of money to hold documents that no one will ever look at again.
So can we amend the motion so that we put the problem, and I think it more properly belongs with the business administrator than the superintendent, given his priorities, that given what we've discussed and the opportunity and the challenges, the business administrator or his designee reports back to the board, in 90 days for next steps, rather than leaving it open-ended, and then we come back a year from now and said, oh yeah, why are we paying $50,000 for trailers,
Right.
We have a planning process that's coming up in the next few months. Can we do this in an organized fashion so it doesn't get lost? And so that we can prioritize on the things that we want our overburdened staff to work on?
Because you've got more, Debbie.
I'm really uncomfortable with something that I haven't seen, that I think is outside of the scope of what I believe my job is as a board member, to vote on something, amended or not, outside of a comprehensive planning process.
So as a board member, we are in charge of the budget. I mean, you said no to the last budget, Michelle, so.
Yeah, I know how I voted.
I know. So, we're not even like talking about ways to work with it, to figure it out.
Because we have a planning process that we actually have not participated in, at least not last year when I was here.
We're looking forward to using our
That
planning
we're looking
process.
forward to doing, and we can do it all at the same time where everything is on the table.
Yep.
But coming up from something that I was totally unaware of and something that is kind of complex, I'm not prepared to vote on something like that. So that's kind of where I am.
But we can certainly keep it on the list, and when we get together in July or August, and I'll send another email around about that. I haven't bothered doing a month or so, but we need to pick a date for our summer goal setting. We should have, and we can keep compiling the list. I'm happy to keep it if you want to leave it with me, or however we want to do it. And these are things we should put on the table and talk about as priorities at that time. I think that's appropriate. Because I also am uncomfortable. I think they're great ideas. I'm not judging the value, and I think they all have merit. But for us to just pick them out, and you're going to have more, and we just, depending on what we come up with every month, we just then throw them over to these guys. And by the way, Tom's in transition and interim, and we're going to have to find a new person. And we, our priorities. We got to get our team straight. We've got to get our people in place. Yeah. Did you want to say something? No. So I would say I'm happy to take the list and keep it running, and we then agree when we sit in July or August, whenever the date is, that we have our retreat, hopefully a half a day, full day, if we can do it. And we will then come up with our district goals and our board goals again for the next year. And it'll be really great. We've done this since January now. We've started kind of talking about being a regular board where we have proper goals. We're going to do evaluations next month, right? We're self-evaluating. We're going to evaluate Steve. We're going to use the tools from the NJSBA. We haven't used those before. We're going to do real evaluations based on the goals that we've talked about. We're going to set new goals in July. Those goals will also inform the budget process, which we will then be involved in fall, which we have not done in the past necessarily in the way that many boards do. And so I'm really looking forward, even after, I was saying even our finance meeting the other day, it's exciting to hear a new perspective about zero-cost budgeting and thinking about the budget as reflecting our strategic values. And I would love to be in a place where I can say that every dollar we're spending is reflecting of the goals and objectives that we've agreed. And I think we're going to move towards that place. But I think we should keep a list and sit together and have a conversation about this. And I know we want to get it done yesterday.
Well, I just,
but-
fear that a year from now, we'll be talking about that following summer's planning session.
But understand that we haven't had, last year, I mean, we're in a new place now, and this is a new process, and we've got to walk before we run. I don't know who said that earlier today. Crawl, walk, run. Crawl, walk, run, but we're working on it, and I feel like every month we have a calendar, we're talking about what we're approving, we're explaining to each other what we're doing, we're asking questions, we're not just showing up and stamping things. So I think we're making good progress together, and I think these are great ideas, and I'm happy to keep track, and maybe give me more, and we'll keep the list going, and then we'll be ready for our goal setting. We'll be even, we'll start ahead. So is that anything else?
Just from a point of order, we have a motion on the
We have a
table.
motion on the table. Do we, what do we do? You're my parliamentarian. Can you help me?
Well, you either vote on this or somebody could make a motion to table it.
Okay, well, we haven't had a second.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a
Dan
second.
did.
So
Dan
do we
did.
move forward to a vote, or do we motion to table?
I would defer to Debbie, who's introduced the motion.
Well, I don't want to table it because I'm very concerned about the budget. Your first speech was about where we are.
Let's call for a vote then.
Okay.
Well,
So,
can I say something?
Of
Yes.
course.
Well, I like the input. Always like ways to save costs. As the board secretary, I'm also the custodian of records. So, this falls right on my lap, which is fine. But the way this is all laid out, and I have no idea what's going on because this is the first that I'm hearing about this, this doesn't have a lot of meaning to me. So I need to do a lot of research to find out what all this means. Where are these records stored? What do we have there? What do we have in the trailers? Why are they in the trailers? This just raises a lot of questions for me because there's too many items in this proposal. What I would have proposed, the way we handle this, is to give me a heads up to take a look at what our situation is, so that I could be better educated to respond to something like this at a board meeting. I just don't know how to respond to this because I know nothing about it. Now, there is a retention schedule that districts are required to follow. Not on my radar yet because I've been involved with referendum and budget at this point, so haven't had a chance to look at what we're doing with record retention. But there is a process that is used to get records destroyed. Now, the question then becomes, are we up to date with that process? I've seen a lot of records in this building, and I have no idea what we're looking at over in this location. But I have to find out what we've been doing and whether or not we are up to date. Now, there are certain records that you're required to keep forever, and you can't even digitize them.
Okay.
So, those are hard copies that we have to keep, and we can debate that question why, but it's the law, we have to do it. The other thing that I would add to the options that you're considering, whether it be finding a way to destroy these records through retention or digitizing records where you can, there's another option, and that's off-site storage.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's not as expensive as you think.
Right.
I've been in other districts where we've done that because of space limitations. And, it's pretty simple to work with.
Yeah.
So, I would add that as another option for us to consider. But I think the first thing we have to do is we have to see what we're dealing with. And if I could find the time to get into this, I would love to do it. Once I get a little break where I can get into this stuff, then I'll be happy to do it.
So this is a proposal.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't know. And I haven't memorized the policy. And that's where I would start. I would read the policy to see, and I would find out all the other things. So I'm just asking if what I would love is to go forward with the proposal. I'm not saying how it's going to end because I don't know. But
Well,
it was a start. It was a start. So you're right, I'm not asking you right now to tell me everything. This is what I came to the board with is a
Here's what
proposal.
I would
Yeah.
propose that you table this. Give me an opportunity to
Okay.
at least find out what we're dealing with here, and then I'll be better educated to give you some advice on how we can proceed with this.
And I would make two suggestions. And I think we've talked about this before, but it's really important that we have no surprises. So we will be much more effective if we can talk through things. So you guys got ideas, come to me. I can talk to Tom, we can talk about it, right? But we need to make sure we're not just bringing stuff up, because it's hard for us to know what to do if we're just all surprised by it. We've talked about this a little bit, but I would suggest, I'm also happy to keep a list, but we keep a list and we let them know what the list is so that they're already thinking about, well, maybe some of this stuff is really easy and maybe some of it's harder. And maybe when we come to our July meeting, they're going to be able to say, we think we could knock these 5 off pretty easily, right? But we have to communicate with each other. We can't just drop it on each other's lap. And so for us to approve this is not really a resolution. It's a proposal. It's an idea. So I say, again, I'll keep it on a list. I can't motion to table, I'm chairing, but you're suggesting we table this. But if we can also then talk to each other and let each other know we've got good ideas, then these guys have some time to work on it when they can and move it forward.
Given the conversation, I would make a motion that we table this idea and that we hold to our practice and that we keep each other informed and that we don't dampen the enthusiasm for coming up with these ideas, but that we do listen to Madam President and we do go through the proper channels and there are no surprises. That's, yeah. I have a motion on the table though, Bill. Sorry, Gabe. Yep. Motion on the table, my friend. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we want to, then we go to a vote?
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor of
And the
motion
vote
to table?
is to table.
Motion to table.
Not to get rid of it, just table.
All in favor of motion to table, show of hands, please. Okay. It's 9 to, one opposed.
more discussion before tabling it, but
Okay.
I'm fine with tabling it once we've had enough discussion.
But I think we've now
Yeah, we
voted to
tabled
table. But we can talk about it offline, that's fine.
What was your vote?
He was
No or-
against.
No.
No.
Thank you. And Gabe, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that I don't know that I speak for everybody, but I think in our office, we're aware of our real estate being very prime and that we know that we are not long for the world of the PHS basement. But that being said, we also
good.
know that there will be an inherent cost of moving us no matter where we go. We do have to route networking, we do have to get power pieces to wherever we move, and we do need a good amount of storage as well as abilities to get large amounts of hardware to wherever we are. Being on the second floor in this building would not be a very ideal situation because we don't have access to an elevator. Currently, we do have 2 elevators in the high school, which allows us to get to all of the building and actually bring things in when they get shipped in. We have a loading dock, we have ways to get the product, and we have a staging ground. Right next door to our offices is the Numina Gallery, which when it's not being used as an art gallery, it's actually being used as our staging ground, which maybe is another place that we can consider for other things in the future and moving an art gallery back up to one of the art rooms or something to that effect. But these are just ideas, and again, I don't think I speak for everybody, but at least things that we should think about, and we're aware, and we're ready to do whatever we need to do for the district, but.
And itemize, and a process where you say, okay, we're going to think about moving, what does IT need? What's the specs?
Right.
What does it look like? So when we have opportunities, including with partners in the community, which this has come up before, Debbie, we've raised this, we know we need a home for them. So anyway,
Sorry, the child at home and
Sorry.
no parent. Okay, thank you. Are there any other new business? Anything else? Okay, goodbye. So I think that with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Brian, second. Jess, thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you.